Hi, I'm your Gemini friend. This video is going to be about Lilith in Libra or the 7th house. And this video is going to come out on my birthday, so happy Gemini season. Happy birthday, all Geminis. Lilith in Libra. This one is interesting because it really connects the Lilith energy. This is repression. It's self-rejection, being made to feel like we are wrong in some area, a difficulty in self-acceptance, societal rejection. When you have Lilith in Libra or the 7th house, this is going to be strongly tied to your relationships and the people in your life. So there's a lot of mirroring, a lot of needing to recognize some of your own traits in other people, potential projection, and lots of lessons through relationships. And of course, it's going to depend on your own personal natal chart and all of your combination of everything as to how prominent this is. So take all of that into account. And I do offer personal natal chart and synastry readings if you're interested. But let's get into this. So Lilith represents the shadow within us, the part of us that we're not willing to look at, that we've been told is wrong, and that we've essentially felt forced to repress. Like this is just not an acceptable way to be. And it tends to manifest in extremes of the energy. So when it comes to the sign versus the house, the sign is going to be more of the expression, like a character, the personality of Libra for your Lilith. If it's in the 7th house, it's going to be about your one-on-one relationships, partnerships, committed relationships. Think of like a serious friendship, a business partner, or a romantic partner that you are committed to. Because Libra is all about fairness and equality and justice, and it wants things to be mutual. That's a big focus here. So when this energy is distorted, it can come through it as codependence or as excessive independence. It can be an obsession with justice and fairness to the point where it's impossible to be decisive or to take sides. Or it can be like a complete rejection of yourself, of your own identity, issues within knowing who you are outside of other people. Because the 7th house is opposite the 1st house, the house that rules our identity and the way that we just approach life in the most unfiltered and genuine way. It's opposite our relationship with ourselves. It's our relationships with other people. So there can be an excessive weight put on how you're received by other people. It can even be, this is Venus. Venus rules Libra. And Venus is very into all sensual things and beauty. So there can be a strong tie between your worth and your appearance, or your worth and what you are to other people, how you contribute to situations, and your ability to keep peace and harmony. There can be an extreme uncomfortableness whenever there is any sort of disharmony, and a desire to fix everything and make sure that everybody's good. Looking to other people outside of you before you look within yourself. It's really important to focus on your own internal harmony first, because you need to have a solid foundation within yourself and knowing who you are. It's so important because the more that you do not know who you are, the more you're going to look outside for that. But the 7th house, we mirror, we project things that we have not properly integrated into ourselves. These are going to show up in other people, and they're going to teach us how to integrate it. They're going to teach us how not to be. Lessons through people. So of course, there can be a tendency to be overly attached to your relationships, to the idea of being in a relationship. And with the extremes, it can be like chronically in a relationship or chronically single. Rejecting partnership, rejecting the idea of marriage, or feeling like you need that to be whole and complete. So boundaries can be an issue here, attaching yourself to people, especially people who affirm any sort of worthiness wounds that you have. You could encounter abusive people and lessons where, what you want to learn is your own worth, your own value, and who you are independently, who you are without any external validation, what comes from within you, and what you know to be true without having to ask anybody or consult anything first. And of course, this could come through divorce early on in your life, seeing a disharmonious relationship between your parents, even being like forced to be a peacemaker. Daily life circumstances like this can make you feel like you always have to be the one to cheer everybody up, to solve everything, to make sure that things are peaceful. You could have had a lot of conflict around you growing up, so you could be obsessed with avoiding any conflict at all, which can always result in like suppressing yourself. When other people are doing something that genuinely upsets you, you might just stuff that down and avoid addressing it, which builds resentment and is never a good idea to do. But that's the lessons in people who are going to be showing you what needs to be addressed, what parts of you need looking at, your shadow. Because Lilith wants us to look at what we are not acknowledging. It's very much related to the inner child that wants to be seen, the parts of us that we just ignore. And especially with Libra energy, there's a lot of justification, a lot of putting other people first in order to avoid doing that inner work. You could even be obsessed with helping other people with their problems and be like the most helpful friend, the most helpful partner. Somebody who is always there for other people. It's so important to make sure that you're there for you first, though. And you're likely a very natural romantic, somebody who is a wonderful partner, but always pay attention to whether that ideal partner is who you really are or what the ideal would be for the person that you're with. There can be a real tendency to morph yourself into the ideal whatever, just ideal. It's idealizing everything in yourself and assuming that things always have to be perfect, always have to be running smoothly, and that conflict avoidance. And this can even lead to seeing your partner as an enemy, even without really fully realizing this. But consider if you have any sort of mentality towards maybe focusing really strongly on the things that your partner does that you don't like, and then like taking that inside you and creating all sorts of turmoil that almost causes this sort of, I don't want to say satisfaction, but there's a familiarity that comes from being the one that is oppressed in certain situations. It's just always more important to just address it, get away from it, always consider whether or not you deserve what is happening to you and whether you want it to continue, because you have a say. There can be a tendency to give up your power even in situations that can almost be like even wanting to have someone to save. I mean, like I said, it can be so uncomfortable to have peace because of the way that you grew up or the people around you that you might even cause conflicts without realizing it, or find people who are going to be people that you'll fight with. It's just really important to pay attention to patterns in your relationships, because these things that come up frequently, I completely understand that you might attract the same person over and over and not even realize it until it's a little too late. Like they seemed perfect, but then a little bit into the relationship, they start doing that thing that everyone always does. When there's a pattern, you have to consider your own role in the situation. And if you've attracted the same person over and over, it doesn't mean you deserve it, but it could be very likely that it's something you need to address within yourself in order to stop having this happen. Because this is true for everybody with every placement. Our descendant, the sign opposite our ascendant, is very often going to represent the people that we bring into our lives that mirror things that need to be addressed, that we need to fix. And of course, these people can balance out our tendencies or make us aware of what we need to integrate. But either way, it's all about us and not about the other person. But I know how hard it can be to see. That's why Lilith placements always really force us to look inwards, force us to look at patterns, look at things that have always been difficult, and especially look at the things that we don't want to face within ourselves. Because this can be a real tendency to sabotage your relationships or to assume that other people have the same issues as you, which is projection. And we can create these pretty crazy stories inside our heads, assuming that other people are interpreting things the same way that we would. And it's essentially just creating problems for us to fix. And I mean, this is life. We'll always have problems. So there's no need to create any that aren't even necessarily genuine. There's nothing wrong with being a helpful partner, being somebody who cares about people and wants to help them with their problems. It's just important to recognize whether or not this is distracting you from your own problems, or if you find yourself very attracted to people who disrupt your peace or give you something to think about rather than thinking about yourself. Just things to consider. And like I mentioned before, this can also be a pretty extreme need to be seen as attractive, to be seen as seductive, somebody who is desirable, somebody who would be a good partner. So just be wary of any sort of like third party situations. Always keep that Libra fairness and equality in mind, because with the extreme indecisive of the Libra energy, through the negative, distorted Lilith, there can be that sort of situation where you're not happy in a relationship, and rather than break up with them, do the thing that you think is going to hurt their feelings, which, I mean, it will, but breakups need to happen sometimes. I know it can seem easier to just get into a new sort of situation and see how things work out. I wouldn't say take the easy way out, because none of this is easy, but just always consider the fairness. Consider how you would want to be treated. Consider that this placement itself is very much rooted in justice and fairness. So if you treat somebody in a way that you would not prefer to be treated, as in maybe preferring like emotional cheating and moving on over doing the hard thing of just having that conversation like it's over, this justice energy will always, it'll come back to bite you. That's what I'm saying. And I'm not calling you a cheater. I would assume that most of you are not. But this is just a potential with this energy, because it can make us prioritize other people's feelings over the hard way. It's opposite Aries, and Aries is very direct. Aries just says what needs to be said without overthinking it. But Libra considers everyone's feelings in the situation. It's coming from a place of love and caring and kindness, but sometimes taking that direct route can be the better option, because then it's just over. It's over. You don't have to drag it out. You don't have to make it complicated. Just something to consider. It's important to keep things fair. And same with legal stuff. I mean, this is also very tied to legal situations. So always make sure that you are on the side of true justice and ethics, because the nature of this energy to get distorted, it really can be very confusing. Like, really confusing. Libra sees the merit of both sides. That is just how this energy works. It wants the balance so badly that it can see, it wants the balance so badly. And it's such a natural diplomat that it's made to see the completeness of both sides of the argument. But when these are personal situations, consider your side. Prioritize yourself, your identity, what makes you feel like you and what makes you feel lighter, more free. And do what needs to be done, because you're so naturally coming at things from a place of true understanding and true caring that you're not going to be stepping on anybody's toes by standing up for yourself. You're naturally going to come across as somebody who is caring and understanding, but you have to stand up for yourself, because nobody else will. I mean, if you do have people who will stand up for you, that's wonderful, and keep them around, but ultimately you are the only one who knows what you've been through, how you truly feel, and it is so empowering to stand up for yourself. And of course, this can also be a fear of commitment, possibly due to like early life circumstances, maybe seeing relationships early on that didn't work out and just wanting to avoid relationships altogether. You could be overly detached from your feelings, from the idea of romance, from your own opinion, because Libra is extremely objective. So if this is the case, lean into the more romantic, sensual Venus side of Libra, the part that wants to experience the pleasures in life and love. But of course, it can also manifest in extreme focus on pleasure and overcompensating with things that make you feel good, to the point where you're not getting things that you actually want to get done. So just another thing to look out for. But I promise you, relationships get better with time with this placement. The more you focus on your self-worth, knowing what you really want, and knowing who you really are within the relationship. It can be hard. You'll have to start off by really standing up for yourself when you might want to let the other person lead. I mean, extremes with this energy, you could be domineering, or you could be someone who lets anything slide, like everything is cool, whatever, I don't care. You always want to balance, especially with this Lilith placement, you want to balance. And this also does not have to be romantic. It can be having like a business partner, someone who you are working together with in that same sort of committed way, where you're both working for something together, and that trust is an important part of it. But equality is also an extremely important part of it, making sure that you are both getting what you need and deserve out of the situation, and not either being too forceful or letting the other person do more than you'd like. Balance. That's the key word with this one. No matter what your situation is. But it's always going to involve other people, and you will find the biggest clues in your relationships. So look at the things that come up the most often, and the things that frustrate you the most, and just take charge where you can. Get really in touch with yourself. Fall in love with yourself. You need to have that healthy relationship with you because you deserve it. You're always with you. You're the only person that you can count on that's always going to be there. So having a bad relationship with yourself, that's like the worst thing you can do. Keeping things fair, you are a part of that. And your affirmation is the only affirmation that you need ultimately. But I do see this placement as usually somebody who is meant to be in a relationship, be with other people. It doesn't mean you're doomed to be single or doomed to whatever sort of, like, if you don't want a relationship, you don't need one. But it's all about having that self-love and coming from a place of knowing who you are and introducing yourself into the relationship, not letting the relationship or the other people tell you who you are or be something that you're going to mold yourself around or change yourself for. You need to introduce yourself as exactly who you are, and for that you have to know yourself first. This is a really important one. It's huge for self-love, so really lean into your Venus energy. Look at your sign and house for your Venus and make sure that you are pleased, that you're doing things to please yourself and make yourself happy, and treat yourself like you would someone that you love, because you should, because you deserve it just like everybody else does. Libra, equality, fairness, be fair to yourself. This is all I have to say here. Thank you so much for watching. I love you. You love you. We all love you. Thank you. I love you. Bye.